How we doing, everyone? Welcome back to the Richie Hicks Jr. Sports Podcast. We title this episode "A Giant Letdown." Not all bad for my team, but we missed an opportunity to go 3-0 against a team that was missing their starting quarterback. And in a quarterback-driven league, when you lose to a backup and when you have more health than the team you're playing, it does tend to be frustrating. And that is what I'm experiencing. As a Giant fan, I was leaving where I was. My buddy Zappy hit me and said, well, if the Giants won, we'd go live tonight. He's 100% right. So I'm doing the right thing, and we're going live. First and foremost, Zappy, congratulations on the win. Hard-fought game, very imperfect game. But I definitely have a lot of notes and things that I want to speak on that led to our first defeat of the season. Mainly number 73, Evan Neal, really just got owned on the offensive line. D-Law had a game. On the other side of the ball, I just felt like the New York Giants front seven was not able to get any kind of sustained pass rush on Cooper Rush. He had a lot of time to throw the ball, essentially do what he wanted. And I think key drives during the game, Zeke Elliott came up big. You know, I could knick-knack and complain, if we don't get a field goal blocked, and if Sterling Shepard doesn't get hit on in my opinion, a ticky-tack call. But to be fair, the refs were very noticeable today. And I do think that while I can complain about some poor calls, I think you can probably do the same thing. So I don't like to hang it on that. When you score 16 points and you're in the NFL, you didn't do enough to win. Bottom line. I think the Giants got to get back to the drawing board. Evan Neal has to find his confidence. He is a good player. He is a rookie. He's going to get exposed by certain star veterans. It's part of learning on the job. But the Giants O-line is the cause of tonight's defeat. I do think Daniel Jones, under duress, made some good plays. I also think, and I hope I'm wrong, I think this is the final game of not only Sterling Shepard's Giants career, but possibly his professional career. I do not know the extent of his injury, but 2 plays before the game ended, I felt that he should have came off the field already. I do not know what's wrong. I hope it's just something that looks a lot worse than it is. But I tend to feel that Sterling Shepard is really, really hurt. And I do believe this could be the end of his Giants career because of the fact that he is not on the books next year. We'll see what comes to fruition with that. We'll see what happens. But week 3, as much as it pains me to say, I think the Giants are the 3rd best team in this division. They had their chances. They didn't capitalize. But, next week is an opportunity to go 3-1. Which would be the first game of October. And 3-1 in almost the first quarter of the year, I'll take it. I think the Giants, what we saw tonight is going to be similar to what we see most games. The defense is going to keep them in most games, and the offense is going to have to make enough plays to win. I think towards the end of the game, the offense looked a little confused, and it was disappointing. Did a show earlier today with friend of the show, Sergio Rodriguez, and he too brought to my attention that he felt that, Brian Daboll, accomplished OC, but has not necessarily proven a lot in the bigger realm of things in terms of head coaching. I didn't completely agree with Sergio, but at the same time, football, the media, the way things get pushed, it's all about narratives. And when you win, you get praised. And when you don't, you take the blame. So I think Brian Daboll right now is getting his first taste of what it feels like to be on the tabloids as the loser after coming, kind of winning over the fan base early. Unexpected 2-0 start. I think the Giants are still ahead of schedule. I think they know what they're coming into this year. Joe Shane, Brian Daboll, they each have to address this roster. And they cannot do the grand plan until the salary cap situation next year where they're able to fully fill out this roster. But I do expect the Giants under Wink Martindale to continue to play decent defense and keep themselves in games. This is the best game Daniel Jones played today of this young season. Unfortunately, it's still one game that he happened to lose.
Yeah, I've got to look at a lot of things. First of all, I think it's really convenient that we saw the Bills lose yesterday to Miami, and at the final image we had was Ken Dorsey just throwing his notes everywhere.
Yeah, he was furious.
He was furious, and then here we are talking about Brian Daboll, where he hasn't proven anything yet as a head coach, and this was the first true test of the season. And lo and behold, I thought it went a little more different than I thought it was going to be. I thought Dallas was going to control the game. But at the same time, you look at the first half of the game, and the Giants were given many opportunities. There was a lot of miscues by the Dallas offense early on, holding penalties that put a stall to a good drive, false starts. Matt Farniok, he had himself a bad first half. And then Dallas went, what did they do? They brought in Jason Peters. That was the moment I thought that changed the game. When Jason Peters came in, the first play of the game was a 40-yard run by Tony Pollard. Right through the left side. Tyler Smith blocking left. Jason Peters stopped. He pulled out, blocked the linebacker, and it was a clear hole. I've been very aggressive about saying that I don't think the Giants are quite there yet, and I think this would really be the test of time. And it really showed. I mean, the defense for the Cowboys did exactly what they needed to do. They put pressure on Daniel Jones. They put pressure on Evan Neal. And the rest is history. And here's one thing I will say as a Cowboy fan to all Giants fans. This game is not on Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones actually made some incredible plays early on today, actually throughout the game, where he was able to avoid a sack here and there, roll out, and throw a pinpoint pass to keep the drive moving. But fact of the matter is the writing's on the wall on how to beat the Giants. Put pressure the quarterback, and from there on out, it's good to go. And like I said, offensively for Dallas, I mean, I'm very happy with the outcome. Cooper Rush has once again proven that when it comes to the fourth quarter, when it comes down to nit and gritty, he's actually a pretty reliable quarterback.
And it's crazy because, former Giant coach, former Cowboy coach, Jason Garrett actually brought in Cooper Rush. To he was a backup in the Giants organization. It's always hard to tell what anybody's going to do until they get game experience. Last year, he proved it in Minnesota. You don't have to be a football guru to know what went wrong tonight. And what went wrong tonight was what you basically said. The Giants were not able to consistently spring blocks for Saquon, nor were they able to, Evan Neal was exposed today. And, his third game as a professional football player. I'm not hitting the alarm button. I take into consideration that I do believe Dallas is in between a top 5 and a top 10 defense, somewhere in between there. And that is what's keeping them in games right now. You said on the phone when I left and I was coming back home that you feel that if Dallas can score 2 touchdowns a game, they're going to win more games than not. So far, that's been proven true. I'm not upset about the loss. This is a team going into the year, my team that I predicted to finish 7-10. Given the good start and given the softness of the first half of the season, I still think that they can range anywhere from 7 to 10 wins. Good teams find ways to win close games, and mediocre teams, you don't necessarily know what you're going to get. It's going to be a mixed bag. And I think, unfortunately, right now, that's what the Giants are looking at, a mixed bag. There are going to be certain weeks where you get some feel-good fourth-quarter plays, sometimes dramatically. I think that the Giants, though, the encouraging thing about the Giants is that I expect them to be in most games this year. And I think that's something to feel good about and to hold your hat on going into the new year. Because this year is all about finding stability and starting to bring back a confidence that you expect to win when you play. And at minimum, I think the new regime, along with Coach Dable, have already instilled some of that into a very young Giants team. All about finding stability and starting. That was quite the delay.
That was really weird.
Yeah, it sounded like I don't know what that was. But at any rate, we're going to see how this plays out. There's a lot of time left. I feel terrible about Sterling Shepard. We don't know the full injury diagnosis yet, but just based on what I saw, I have a feeling that this could be the end of the line for Sterling Shepard. And while I think it was probably his last year as a New York Giant regardless, it's sad to see it end like that if that's really what it is. And but, you know, it's always next man up. That if football is a cruel sport like that. I will say this. An opportunity arises for Kadarius Toney to establish himself into this offense. Kenny Golladay, incredibly disappointing. Key drop that could have kept the Giants' drive alive. And to your point about Jones tonight, I believe that his receivers let him down on some very catchable passes, not to mention, you know, the Giants were even brought in tight end help to try to help in the blocking game. And, you know, quite frankly, they just didn't do a good enough job to win. You know, when you score 16 points as a professional team, you're not going to win many games unless you have the defense of a 2000 Ravens or an 84 49ers or an 85 Bears, 86 Giants. You get where I'm going. Giants are still figuring it out. A game that they could have won, but a game that they didn't win. And the Dallas Cowboys made less mistakes tonight, and that's why they won. It is not that complicated. But it's frustrating because, you know, I made mention to you that I do believe that come Thanksgiving, the Giants are going to be a much better team when they play Dallas a second time. But having said that, one would have to think that the Cowboys are going to be a better team the next time we play each other as well. And I would say as a Giants fan, and with acknowledging that Philly really looks like they're going to run away with this division this year, it puts a serious onus on getting the better of Washington, making, you know, winning the Texans game, winning the Bears game, winning the games that people think that you're supposed to win. Jacksonville, certainly no gimme. We have already seen that they are, I wouldn't call them for real, but they are definitely an improved team. But, you know, the NFL is a week-to-week league. It's a copycat league as well. You know, you made a point about what teams have to do moving forward to deal with the Giants. And the Giants have to make adjustments based around what the report card is through 3 weeks. It's not all bad. Saquon Barkley, quality game, albeit it wasn't as smooth as we hoped, but we knew we were going to be in for a dogfight. I picked the Giants. You picked the Cowboys. One thing that we both agreed on, it was going to be a one-score game. I do appreciate the effort. I think Brian Dable has these guys playing very hard. But, you know, the loss of Sterling Shepard is no small thing. You know, he is the one true tenured veteran that's getting respect in that locker room. But somebody has to step up now. Is it Kadarius Toney? Is it Richie James? Is it Kenny Golladay? Wan'Dale Robinson, the rookie? He's going to get an opportunity. We'll just have to see how it plays out. But it's going to be up and down year. And this is part of building a winner. It takes time.
And, you know, Golladay had that opportunity.
Yeah, that's why it's so frustrating. That's why it's so frustrating.
And I bet it. I know it's frustrating. Believe me, I've been there. But, you know, while you're sitting there talking about the things that have frustrated you, I mean, there's things that frustrated me as a Cowboy fan. Even when I talk about CeeDee Lamb, for example, I mean, the guy had a wide open flag route. Cooper Rush put it right on the money, and he bobbles it. I messaged my buddy Matt, and I said, CeeDee Lamb is not a number one. It's been pretty clear the last couple of weeks. But after that message, it seemed like, I'm not going to say he read my message and woke up, but he responded from that play. He really did. When Saquon broke loose for, 40 yards and a score to take the lead 13-6, I was honestly talking about, I want to see what Dallas offensively will do to respond. And they did exactly what they needed to do. There was no panic in the team. they look like a team. They're like, all right, hey, we're down 13-6. There's this much time left on the clock. Let's go take care of business. And from that point on, offensively, they looked great. They looked unstoppable. I don't want to say unstoppable, but Cooper Rush was reading what was given to him, and he did what he needed to do. There was a lot of situations defensively for the Giants where I saw a little bit of confusion. Where should I go? Where should this go? Things like that. And, that's going to happen with a young team, a young, inexperienced team, and that's the bottom line. The response by Pollard and Zeke in the second half. I mean, Dallas got off going, running the ball. They did what they needed to do. Penalties put a stop on a lot of drives. We saw the long miss before the half by Brett Maher, which I will add that it's convenient that you talked about the difference in the game being the kickers, and they both missed the field goal, except our field goal was wide right. Your field goal was blocked. So he kicked it low.
Yeah, it was a little bit of both. I mean, the penetration on the play, I looked at it a couple of times. Dallas made a play. Bottom line, Dallas made a play. A couple of things go differently. I'll put it to you like this. If that's the Gano first attempt of the night, I do think that the final drive may have been scripted differently. But at the end of the day, when you're dealing with an imperfect roster and, the Giants are not the type of team that's built right now that could come back from multiple scores down. I mean, they did it in week 1 against Tennessee, but that's not the formula for the Giants to win. The Giants have to be within a score at all times right now. And to kind of outwill and outcoach their opponents. I do have a high faith in Kafka and Dable running the offense together. I do believe in the end there's going to be a lot more pluses than negatives. But right now, I'm going to learn a little bit about my team now. This is the first bit of adversity that we get, and we now have an opportunity to flip it around. Moving forward into week 4, season is moving so quickly. It's crazy. You got the New York Giants hosting the Chicago Bears next week. Similar to what we saw in the Carolina game, similar to what we saw tonight. The Giants are going to probably find themselves in another defensive struggle where they're just going to have to make a few plays down the stretch. Because, the difference between being 3-0 and 0-3 is like that minuscule, particularly pertaining to my team. They're 2-1, but this is a team that's imperfect. They're going to have to capitalize and take advantage of the opportunities they're given. And with a young team, there's going to be growing pains. And I expect that there's going to be certain games that we should win that we lost. There should be certain games that we should have lost that we actually win. But most importantly, I do have my eyes on 2023, where the team gets cap relief. They're in a better position in general from what the previous regime with Dave Gettleman left behind. But I don't necessarily think this is a 2-team division. I do think the Giants are going to hang around for the most part of the season, and the Giants are going to have a say in their own destiny of possibly being a wild card. It's early. I have a high faith in Evan Neal. I was very much a fan of that pick. He's a player I wanted. And it's going to take time. None of this is going to come right away.
It's going to take time.
Andrew Thomas took time. Andrew Thomas, guys, people wanted to run him out of town immediately because of the bad experience of, say, like Eric Flowers, for instance. Giant fans hitting the panic button early with Thomas. And Thomas, in my opinion, is probably going to be a Pro Bowler this year and for more years to come. But unfortunately, he is the one shining star, no pun intended, on that particular O-line. And it's going to take time. There is no going around it. It is going to take time. And, I look for positives when something negative happens, not just in sports, but in life. I look at Saquon Barkley. I do believe that Saquon Barkley, for the most part, is back. But there's going to be weeks where Dable is going to have to get very creative to make sure that he can get the most out of Barkley, because there's going to be certain weeks where his O-line is getting overwhelmed, like what we saw tonight, where you're going to have to put Barkley in positions where maybe you line him up in the flanker. You line him up in positions where he's going to touch the ball in other ways. It's important. He's our best, most dynamic player. And, I believe that he has to have the ball in his hands most times. He has had the most profound effect. A healthy Saquon Barkley has had the most profound effect on our offense probably since Odell Beckham. And there's been a lot of mediocre play in between those two particular players of many others that have come and gone. They spoke tonight on the game about offensive linemen that we have drafted over the last few years that are no longer with the team, getting a second contract after the rookie deal. Evan Neal's a good football player. I followed his career in the SEC. He's going to be just fine. But, when you're going against some of the NFL's best that have been doing it for a long time, they are going to make you look like a rookie. And that's what happened tonight.
Yeah, and it's really not often that you get a Rashawn Slater. Well, while he unfortunately is out for the year with a torn biceps, the guy had an unbelievable rookie year last year.
Absolutely. And that's a player that we could have got. But we chose Kadarius Toney. We also had an opportunity to draft Micah Parsons. I'm not going to beat myself up or lose it over that. I wasn't the biggest fan of the Wan'Dale Robinson pickup this year when I felt that we could have got a quality linebacker. But, the story isn't always told in the first couple of years post-draft. You got to let more of the body of work play itself out. But, yeah, missing out on Micah Parsons, there's nothing to discuss. It's tough to take one like that.
I mean, I love it. I think you guys did a great job. Don't get me wrong. I mean, we were sitting there at 10. We traded back.
I will say this. If Denver doesn't take Surtain going back to that 2 drafts ago, I don't think Micah is on your minds like that. I believe that part of scoring big in a draft is also having a little bit of luck. And, Denver taking Patrick Surtain, I believe, is what led all the other events to kind of domino unravel. I mean, shit, the Bears got a quarterback out of that situation in Justin Fields.
It was
the Giants traded back to 20. They took Toney. There was a litany of things that happened in a perfect storm in order, you had the rare interdivision trade. You don't see that very often.
No, it was honestly the Panthers taking J.C. Horn. Because the Panthers weren't supposed to take a cornerback. Dallas was expecting J.C. Horn or Patrick Surtain to be there.
Yeah, that was the word. They're going to get themselves a defensive back. And when the two targets were off the board, they said, okay, let's go get a linebacker.
And it was easy for them because they're like, all right, well, we want Micah Parsons. We want Rashawn Slater. We don't want Devontae Smith. So, hey, Giants, you do your thing. Oh, wait, you want Justin Fields? Okay, Bears move up. I'll
be honest. The player I did want was not Micah Parsons, was not Patrick Surtain.
It was Devontae Smith.
Rashad, yeah, it was Devontae Smith going back, a couple of years ago. But, like I said, I think it all started with the Surtain draft pick with Denver. If they don't pick Surtain, I think the G-men get Smith. I really believe that. I think Dallas possibly you said Horn went to the Panthers.
Yeah,
it took a lot.
It was weird.
It took a lot to happen because I feel that the Giants thought they were getting a consolation prize when they drafted Toney because they didn't get Devontae Smith. Because by drafting Toney, it essentially the Giants showed their card and say, yeah, we wanted a wide receiver. I do think that the Giants maximized that draft capital a year later by getting Kayvon Thibodeau, who in many mocks going into the final months was potentially considered good enough to be the first overall pick. Then you get Evan Neal. Yes, Evan Neal had a rough night tonight. Yes, Evan Neal has had a rough go in September. He's a rookie. I'm going to stick with him. I'm going to support him. I think he's going to get better. I think the kid's a winner. I just think that, sometimes it's baptism under fire when you come into the NFL as an offensive lineman and you're dealing with some of the most athletic, agile, great players. And, he's going to get tested early and often. Andrew Thomas, year 1 versus year 2. Look at his trajectory, how he came about. Now, in my opinion, he's on the verge of being a perennial Pro Bowler. The Giants, for the most part, I do think that the future is bright. As far as the Cowboys go, whether you're better than us or whether we're better than you, from a very humble place. I don't think anyone is truly going to challenge Philadelphia in our division this year. Of course, there's a lot of time left. Things could happen. I do tend to believe that you guys have the defense that can help you hang around a little longer with Philadelphia. I will give you that. Once again, you need Dak healthy. You need the perfect storm of things in order to do that. But it's a copycat league, and the word around the league right now is, you mentioned it to me actually last year. Philly abandoned what they were doing and really committed to running the ball with a quartet of people, one of them being their quarterback. What happened is it masked a lot of Jalen Hurts' weaknesses. And ultimately it spawns into now they are a run-first team, and Hurts did his due diligence to get better at his craft. He is a better quarterback than he was a year ago. But more so than that, Philly's just – you can make an argument. You can make a case that Philly could potentially be the best team in the NFL right now. I don't believe that to be true, but you can make a case. What I found interesting on the show there earlier today, Sergio made mention to me that his preseason prediction, or going into the year even as close as now, he feels that the Super Bowl, while it's way too early to talk about that, is going to be Buffalo and Green Bay. And I had to chuckle because it was my prediction as well. Probably not the same way that most would see it. Going into the year, I had the Indianapolis Colts losing to Buffalo, and the Green Bay Packers, I think it was, defeating the Rams. There's so much football left. We'll see what happens. And, it's a league of overreactions too. The Giants aren't as good as their record, especially if they would have snuck this one out and gone 3-0. But I want to reiterate to Giant fans, they're also not as bad as this loss. They are somewhere in between both of those peaks. There is a happy medium that people have to accept about this team right now.
And, I can't argue with that. I will say the same goes for Dallas. They're not as bad as this win was, because Dallas honestly should have won by a lot more. They should have. Let's be honest about this. They should have. There was a lot of drive-killing penalties early on and so on and so forth. As far as Philly goes, there's one thing I'm noticing about the team. Like, while they are 3-0, I mean, when you really break down their schedule and who they've played, I mean, they put a whooping on Minnesota at home. Let's not ignore that. But to Detroit, they pulled off a 3-point victory after being up big, but then Detroit came back and almost pulled it off.
Keep going, Zap. I got to get a little water. I'm getting a little parched. Just keep rolling. I'll be right back.
I mean, but the same could be said about Washington. It seems like Philly is more of a first-half team. They're going to get off. They're going to explode. They're going to punch you in the mouth, and then they're going to rely on their defense to hold the game over. But we have seen the same narrative the last couple of weeks, where Philadelphia gets off, they build a lead, and then they kind of just like, all right, and it's over. And, we have to see what's going to happen with a team like Philadelphia, where they're going to face adversity. We saw what happened with Buffalo. Buffalo was, I mean, they should have won that game. They should have won it handily. However, it was just little things here and there, and that's why I think Philadelphia has not faced that adversity yet. I think they're going to enjoy this high they're on right now, but then if you look at their schedule, they got Jacksonville next week. While they're the team that's been surprising a lot of people, they have a defense that can keep up with Philly. Do I think Jacksonville is going to win? No. And if Jacksonville pulls off another one, then I'm going to jump on the Jacksonville Jaguars bandwagon. But then when they go to Arizona the following week, but after that, they have to face a Dallas defense that is, I mean, let's face it, they can keep up. They're going to keep games close. We saw it week 1 with Tampa Bay. Dallas's defense didn't lose that game against Tampa Bay.
Not by any means.
The offense, and they just got tired, And while I have full respect for Philly, but there's one thing we have to remember about the NFC East is we literally – the Eagles, the Giants, the Cowboys, even the Commandos have the easiest schedule in the NFL. So Philly is winning the games they're supposed to win. Giants, they won their 2 games they're supposed to win. The Cowboys have won their 2 games they're supposed to win. While the Bengals game did catch me off guard, but the defense carried them to victory. So, I mean,
I think
yeah,
you could almost make a trade, and just based on what it says on paper, the Giants probably should have lost week 1 and they probably should have won week 3. But I think 3 weeks into the season, you and I would probably agree that the Tennessee Titans, while I think we both kind of expected a bit of a regression, realized that they are not who we thought they were maybe a year or 2 ago, or what we expected when looking at their brand of football. Because, yeah, they got their first dub, but they beat an 0-2 Raiders team that is now 0-3. And
the only 0-3 team. I have to throw that out there for all the Raiders fans. I have to, because of all the talk they were talking this year.
Yeah, the only 0-3 team. And I look at their schedule, and I do see places where the schedule softens and where you got to think. I mean, they have lost close games. I'm not going to totally take a crap on them. But I guess what I'm getting at is the Buffalo game even yesterday. It took, multiple guys dealing with the heat, the injuries to their secondary. And honestly, just some dumb luck. They should have won that game yesterday. And I guess what I'm going for, the Chiefs losing to the Colts, that's a laugh in a way. There's a lot of parity right now in the NFL. The Patriots, who I both think we agree do not feel nor think very highly of, made their mistakes, but they had their chances to beat a very good Ravens team. They
have Devontae Parker. He had 156 yards receiving. Come on. Just kidding.
Parker, no, it's true, though. I mean, Parker did have a game. Now I'm curious to see if that's sustainable, and it doesn't get easier for New England. They're going to be going into Green Bay this week, a Packer team that is feeling pretty good about themselves, outlasting a Buccaneer team that has had their number. And yes, I get it. The Buccaneers are missing people, but I see that it was an even disadvantage because while the Bucs are missing people, the Packers are missing continuity and experience. So what does that give us? It gives us 2 very good defenses that are going to beat the snot out of each other. I want to say this, that Brady TD with under a minute left, under 30 seconds left, that was on triple zeros and then a few more seconds. They definitely gave him a freebie there. I think it was pretty remarkable how after being down by 2, and in my opinion, getting gifted that play, which they shouldn't have had, should have been blown dead. I believe in milliseconds, and I know that there's that small room for error, but this was a legit drag after the double zeros on the actual scoreboard in the stadium. So I do believe that was a little wild.
Karma goes around. I mean, it's the same thing with when they were going for the 2-point conversion, where all of a sudden there was 25 seconds and 20 seconds on the clock. And
yeah.
They got to delay it. That's karma. That's the ref saying, hey, we missed one. We're going to get it right here. And they did. I mean, we can sit here and point fingers about this and that, but fact of the matter is the refs for 2 plays in a row dropped the ball.
It's a little early for predictions, but we can kind of give like maybe a cold take or a quick take on what we think before we get out of here. And I do have a question for you also before we sneak out of here. But this particular week with regard to the NFC East, I already mentioned that the Giants are hosting Chicago. Without naming a winner nor a final, I do believe that's going to be a very close competitive game. We have your team this coming week is going to play the Commanders. I have every reason to believe that you guys have a great chance of winning that game. But I also believe that after the Commanders got embarrassed against Philly, they're going to show some pride. They're going to want to show up. So I don't necessarily think that'll be a walk in the park. And I saw who Philly was playing, and it actually just slipped my mind. The Eagles are playing. Let me go take a peek because I honestly forgot.
They're playing Jacksonville, the Jaguars.
Oh, that is this week.
Yeah.
And is that in Jacksonville or is that in Philly? That's in Jacksonville.
It's in Philly.
You sure about that?
100%.
Okay. Either way, I think we know who should win that game. But, this is that part of the season that's still relatively early where you're going to see certain teams separating themselves from other teams. And I think my team, like I said, week 4, You're coming off your first loss of the year in the Brian Dable era. You have a chance to get some respect now. Go get back into the win column before a very trying trip against a team that you're probably not supposed to beat, the Green Bay Packers. And like I said, the Packers have their share of issues. But I do think that they play really good defense. And, the Giants are going to be searching and looking for answers because the loss of Sterling Shepard, like I said earlier in the show, is going to be very hard to overcome. And I hope it's not as bad as it looks. But from the initial, what I saw, I think that's his season. Before we get out of here, I want to ask you this. What is your favorite Cowboys versus Giants moment? There's a few, and maybe we could go back and add a few. But go ahead. I want to hear this. Emmitt Smith, 93?
Yeah. Shoulder bummed up. I mean, what did he do against you? What was it, 164? I mean, that I don't have to think about that one. That's an easy answer to that.
There's a two-way tie for me. Just bear with me.
Oh, and here's my other one, actually, the most recent one. While the game had no bearing on what the the postseason was going to look like in 2018, Cole Beasley, 36-35 final score.
Yeah.
The Dak rolling out to his left and throwing deep to Cole Beasley at East Rutherford, and Cole Beasley with the knee drag. A great catch. I mean, a phenomenal catch. It was one of those, I was just like, what the hell? Like, I was in Dallas for that game to watch Notre Dame play Clemson in the playoff. And then I was like, I'm going to leave after the Cowboys-Giants game. And it just was like, it was back and forth, like, oh, man. And I think it might have been the thrill of the weekend, going to a college football playoff game and follow it up. Like, I don't want to see Dallas go 9-7. I want to see him go 10-6. So I think that was the big one for me. While Emmitt Smith, the way he ran with a bummed up shoulder against the Giants, which is, still one of the greatest games by a running back we could ever talk about.
And you know what's crazy? What gets overshadowed every time that they talk about that game? Rodney Hampton had a hell of a game too. Just a true, like, I used to speak to Elliot about this. He's a big Cowboys fan too. And I always said that I felt that was a changing of the guard, passing of the torch kind of game. And even though Dallas had already wet their beak and won a bowl before that was played, the point of the matter is that was a character-defining game on so many levels. You have the iconic meeting between Emmitt Smith and Lawrence Taylor, two of the best players in the league at that time, and of any time, really. Two truly great Hall of Famers. But that game had a little bit of everything. But truth be told, looking back at it as a grown man now, as a kid back then, the Giants overachieved that year, and Dallas was the best team. We had a chance to steal home field. We missed out on it, but it was a great game. For me personally, it's a two-way tie. I attended the 2012 New Year's Day game, Giants versus Cowboys. It was for the NFC East Division title. 2 words. Victor Cruz, the roof came off that place when he scored early on a 74-yarder. Similar to tonight, white towels galore, the all-in towels. And the truth is, even though this particular Giant team is not on the same level as the most recent Super Bowl winner, what I really loved about tonight is that I saw an enthusiasm in that building that reminded me of glory days, but also reminded me of better days to come. And it was nice to see that atmosphere. Not sure where Zappy went, so I'm going to continue. My second one, the Giants upsetting the number 1 seeded Dallas Cowboys. R.W. McQuarters with the pick on Tony Romo, the famous Terrell Owens post-game interview where I quote my dad. I'm going to quote my dad here when he saw that interview with T.O. after the game, and he says, my God, I actually have to empathize with this guy. He said he pulled a Skip Bayless. He was like, Team Obliterator is legitimately winning me over right now, defending and crying over his quarterback. And I was like, Pop, he's a great actor. Calm down. Not trying to play with T.O. and mess with T.O. T.O. had his things. Most receivers, let's keep it real, most receivers got the diva instincts, the diva thing going. But T.O., even now, I'm convinced if you put him on a football field, he will find a way to make that team, no matter what team it is. Superior athlete, great work ethic. And, when you look at other guys, he is far from the worst human that has ever played football, and the media did villainize him sometimes unfairly. I want to mention this one.
That's what the media does. And we have been talking about this between, not to get off subject, but between me, you, Idris, this whole Brett Favre situation, comparing it to Michael Vick, comparing it to Jameis Winston. That's what the media is exactly going to do. Sorry, I don't want to get off topic and lose my mind about it, but that's what the media does. They're going to villainize people.
I want to run this over too. The Odell Beckham catch. It wasn't a losing effort, but definitely a catch that put him on the map professionally. When Jerry Reese made that pick, I knew what he could be, but I'd be lying if I knew he would be that. In college, I think many would agree that Jarvis Landry was probably the better receiver at that level. But it's funny how things work out on the pros, because if you track even flipping it over to baskets for a second, Michael Jordan's career, the best player on those North Carolina teams is actually James Worthy. So, so much could happen, from the college to the pro game. I might be in the minority that actually believes that not this year, but potentially next year, there will be an OBJ New York Giant reunion. I think OBJ finishes his story back home, and the Giants might be a good enough football team to actually want to play for. But if I was OBJ, get that money, and if the Rams are willing to pay you, go get it and try to help them win another Super Bowl, because Odell basically played for free last year. Anything you want to mention on our way out of here? I'm done here.
The one thing I have to say about Giants and Bears next week, the Eagles and Jaguars, the Cowboys and the Commandos, Washington football team, Redskins, whatever they are. No, I think we're going to see a situation next week where the Giants should beat the Bears. The Bears are another example of a team that, Justin Fields throws for 106 yards and they still get a win, but they're playing their schedule.
But if the Giants have any intentions of being a playoff team, that's a team that they absolutely have to beat. Similar to when they play the Texans this year.
They absolutely have to. They have to win.
I certainly wouldn't consider Detroit a gimme. But yeah, they have
against the Titans.
That's the difference between
they did it last week against the Panthers. Those are the games they have to. Yeah, and those are back against the Titans, the Panthers last week, the Bears next week. These are the games you have to win. The NFC East has the easiest schedule in the NFL. You play your schedule. You play the schedule that's given to you, and whatever happens, happens. I fully expect that the Cowboys win, the Eagles win, and the Giants will win next week.
I tend to agree, which would leave the division 4-0, 3-1, 3-1, and, slowly but surely bringing back credibility to a division that actually has hoisted the most Lombardi trophies. We are out for now. Zappy, congratulations on the victory tonight. Not the way I thought it would shape out, but at the same time, wasn't mind blown either. You guys are a little more established than we are right now, and these are just part of the growing pains. But I do look forward to our rematch in Arlington on Turkey Day. Until next time, I'm Richie. He's Zappy, and no, Zappy is not a ventriloquist. That picture did freeze for a little while he was still speaking. So I myself had to figure out what happened there. I was like, oh man, he froze out. But Zappy, thank you for coming on tonight. following up on what Sergio and I spoke on this morning, Sergio was proven right tonight more so than myself. A lot of what he forecasted, as well as you for that matter, did come to fruition. Can't be right every week. But having said that, as a Giants fan, I'm still optimistic about what the immediate future holds. I want to make a quick mention of this. Aaron Judge is still chasing home run number 61, but it will happen, and it will happen soon. I got the vibe it's going to happen at home against Baltimore. I don't know about Toronto. Yankees finally lost. I'd like to say finally lost because they have been on a nice little winning streak. But the Yankees are very much in control of the American League East. They should be wrapping it up very soon, in addition to being able to rest and set their starting rotation for the playoffs. Looking forward to that. We're going to dive more into baseball this week. Until next time, I'm Richie. He's Zappy. Thank you so much for watching, and have a great rest of your week. And to my native Floridians here, my neighbors, everybody just take the proper precautions and be careful with this hurricane. I am feeling very optimistic about that, though. We are out.
Good night, everyone.
Take care, guys.